From your local election headquarters, this is Eyewitness Newsmakers with your hosts, Jayne and Bugda and Andy Mehalshick.
Welcome to Newsmakers from your local election headquarters. I'm Jayne and Bugda.
And I'm Andy Mehalshick. Today we're focusing on the race for the U.S. Senate. That's the matchup between the Democratic incumbent Senator Bob Casey and Republican candidate and challenger U.S. Congressman Lou Barletta.
We recently interviewed both Senator Casey and Congressman Barletta. To be fair, we asked both candidates the same questions and allowed them a minute to wrap to address the voters.
We will then be joined by our team of political analysts, David Yonkai, Dr. David Sosar, and attorney Chris Cullen. They will weigh in on the race and the candidates. Newsmakers from your local election headquarters begins right after this. Welcome back to your local election headquarters. Andy Mehalshick along with producer Jayne Bugda and our guest for this segment, U.S. Senator Bob Casey, running for a third term in the U.S. Senate. Senator Casey, thanks for joining us today.
Andy, good to be with you. Jayne, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me start off with a question. You know, people are looking at what's happening in Washington these days, last year or so especially, the volatility, the very hostile climate between Dems and the Ds and the Rs. What can you do, and what have you tried to do to bring more civility to Washington?
Well, part of that, Andy, is up to the individuals. You've got to make an effort. Every member of Congress has to make an effort to try to work with both sides. And there are times when you can have a disagreement without using invective or strong language. And I think more of us need to do that. I've tried to do that. Sometimes you get frustrated, you get angry, and you want to make a point. But I think there are also ways to, in addition to how you conduct yourself, ways to achieve common ground. One of the best things I did was work with a Republican Senator, Richard Burr, to pass into legislation, or I should say pass legislation, called the ABLE Act, which said that for the first time in the tax code we would make sure that families had a tax advantage way to save for a disability, just like you save for college, so that a child with a disability can have a savings account that they can use later in their life when they're an adult. There are a number of bills that I've been able to pass into law. Most recently, a bill with Susan Collins to help the opioid crisis, help grandparents who are raising a grandchild because of the opioid crisis. A bill with Mike Enzi from Wyoming that reestablished and improved our career and technical education programs. So it's possible to do it, but you have to work at it.
And Senator, immigration continues to be a hot button topic. Where do you stand on immigration, and how do we fix a system that many people say is apparently broken?
I think it is broken, and the bipartisan approach to that has to start with border security. I think we had a good opportunity and a good, if I could call it a test run, way back in 2013, where 68 United States senators voted for a comprehensive bill. And the first part of that bill was border security. Nothing would happen unless we secured the border by using technology and investing in ways to secure the border, doubling the Border Patrol, adding 20,000 more Border Patrol agents. So border security has to be central to it. I think we can do that in a bipartisan way, but also work on the other issues like the guest worker issues and others that have made it difficult to achieve bipartisan consensus. The worst thing we could do is not try to solve the problem and just go down the path that some in Washington have taken. We need a bipartisan solution. I think we can get there.
Senator, what about, of course, the elephant in the room again this year, health care? Where do we go for it? We had so-called Obamacare, then President Trump came in. Where do we stand with that, and what would you propose to improve the health care system?
Well, the main thing, Andy, I think in this election year is we should all agree and take actions in furtherance of the agreement that people that have protections today for pre-existing conditions should have them no matter what. There's no reason why we should go back to those dark days when an insurance company could deny you or your family, sometimes children, treatment or coverage because they had a pre-existing condition. Unfortunately, it's a difference in this campaign between my opponent and me. We've got to make sure that those protections are there. We've got to make sure that Medicare and Medicaid are protected. The repeal bills that were proposed in 2017 would have decimated Medicaid and turned Medicare into a voucher program. We've got to make sure that we protect those programs. And again, this can be done in a bipartisan fashion if you're willing to sit down and work together to protect the more than 31,000 people in Luzerne County that have health care because of the Affordable Care Act. We need to make sure that those folks have that health care, that the protections are in place. And lastly, we need to work together with Democrats and Republicans to lower the cost of health care.
Jobs always an important topic on everyone's mind. So how do we attract more jobs to the Commonwealth and then retain them here?
One of the best things we could do at the federal level, and I would hope the President would be able to work with both sides on this, and I think he can, is on the issue of infrastructure. Investing in rebuilding our roads and bridges and ports and water systems, but also to invest in the new infrastructure, which is broadband. We still have too many people that live in small towns and rural areas that don't have broadband, and we've got to make sure that that's part of a major, excuse me, a major infrastructure plan that could be bipartisan. I'd also say to attract the jobs of the future to northeastern Pennsylvania, we've got to make sure that not only do children have early education and have a quality education, but can get the skills they need, and some of those skills that we can provide over time are in the career and technical fields. That's why that bill that I passed with Mike Enzi, Senator from Wyoming, is so important to creating that high-skilled workforce that will attract the jobs of the future. And this region, I think, has a lot of assets that can attract those jobs.
And Senator, this question is an easy question, folks. Of all the issues facing America today, what is the most important issue facing federal lawmakers moving forward, starting in January? What's the most important issue you think that has to be addressed if you had to pick the number one?
I think other than national security and making sure that our national security continues to be bipartisan in how we approach it, the most important domestic issue, I think, is health care. We need to make sure that we're not only preserving the gains that we made when 20 million people got health care and more than 150 million people got better protections, but we need to make sure that we're working on strategies to lower the cost of health care. We even last year had a bipartisan effort to do that. We need to continue that to work together to bring down health care costs.
And Senator, one final question or one final thing. So look at our camera and tell the voters why they should re-elect you to the Senate.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. I think the people of Pennsylvania have a very clear choice to make in this race. My candidacy is a candidacy that focuses on building a stronger middle class, lifting wages, creating jobs for those middle class families, those trying to get to the middle class, protecting our workers, and we're going to make sure that if I have the opportunity to serve a third term in the United States Senate, that I continue to protect health care, protect those that have health care, try to lower the cost of health care, and lower other costs like the cost of child care, prescription drugs, and help people save for college and retirement. I ask for your vote. I'm honored and privileged to be able to ask for your vote, and I'm grateful for this opportunity.
And Senator Casey, again, thank you for joining us here today. Thanks for your time. And that'll do it for now from your local election headquarters. We'll be back again. We are joined in this segment with Republican Congressman Lou Barletta, who currently represents the 11th Congressional District, but is also the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. First of all, welcome, Mr. Barletta, to our program today.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Let me start off with the first question. The political climate in Washington, most would say, is not just polarized, downright hostile. How will you change that if you go now to the Senate?
Well, it didn't take me long, Andy, to see it for myself. When I first got to Congress, one of the very first things I did in my first term was join a bipartisan working group. There's 27 of us, Democrats and Republicans. We meet every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock in Washington to work on legislation to get together, to try to cut through some of the gridlock that is just really freezing the country from moving forward. But I've taken that lesson back home with me here, found how I can work together with other people, such as Senator John Yudichak, a Democrat state senator, obviously. You know, Senator Yudichak and I have worked together on the SHINE program, bringing SHINE to Luzerne County. We've worked together on Operation Gang Up, trying to eliminate gangs from our communities. And just recently, we worked together on trying to get the funds together to put out the Janesville mine fire. So I have a history of working together with Democrats to find areas where we have common ground, and it's there if you try.
And Congressman, one topic that you've been very passionate about is immigration, and it's a hot button topic. Tell us a little bit about your stand on immigration. Sure. And how do we fix a system that many people say is broken?
Sure, it is broken, and I was, I got the experience at firsthand as a mayor of Hazleton, where I saw our population grow by 50%, but our tax revenue remained the same. So imagine 50% more people, but without an extra penny to provide services to the people there. Well, obviously in a small town, you can see it. It's very transparent. I tried to do something about it when no one else in the country would. I was the first mayor in America to stand up and try to fight the problem of illegal immigration while still maintaining that we are a country of immigrants and we welcome immigrants into this country. But we have a way to come here. We have a legal process that has to be followed. And I've been at the forefront of this debate in Washington from day one, where my very first bill I introduced was to punish sanctuary cities that are actually protecting illegal aliens.
What about health care? Again, another hot button topic. Some folks say health care is like the weather. People talk about it, nothing gets done about it. Most would agree it's at least on life support. How do we fix the health care system?
Sure, I think you got to get Washington out of the way and really let people make their own choices. Allow people to make the decision of what the health care plan they want, what doctors they want to see, and allow competition to help drive down the prices. You should be able to shop anywhere you want to for your health insurance, the same way you do for cars. We should allow businesses to pull together so that they can go out and buy health insurance for their employees at a much lower rate. Instead, what we saw was our premiums through Obamacare, our premiums go up 120%. Over $700 billion taken from Medicare. Deductibles where people now have an insurance card, but they can't afford to pay the out-of-pocket. And a 120% increase of our premiums here in Pennsylvania is one of the highest in the country.
And Congressman, what do we need to do to bring more jobs to the Commonwealth, more good-paying jobs, and have them stay here?
Well, we have a great opportunity here in northeastern Pennsylvania, but first of all, let's talk about the economy and how great it's doing under these policies, where we're seeing unemployment at 3.9%, GDP at over 4%, black unemployment at an all-time low, Hispanic unemployment at an all-time low, women's unemployment at a 64-year low. There are actually more jobs now than people who are unemployed. This is an incredible economy, and it's because the tax cuts, a combination of the tax cuts and lower regulations, allowing businesses to grow. But just watch, the preview here for northeastern Pennsylvania is going to be anthracite coal again for manufacturing, because of the use of anthracite coal in manufacturing, especially where we're looking at these 19 rare earth minerals that exist in our anthracite piles, that we buy 100% from China, the United States, and China sells 85% to the world. That actually could happen right here in Pennsylvania, which will mean great manufacturing jobs for northeastern Pennsylvania.
On your total hit parade, do you feel moving forward the most important issue on the top facing federal lawmakers, the most important issue?
So the thing that people care the most about are things that matter to their families, making sure that they could take care of their families, put their children through school, have a wedding when their children get older. So it's the economy. The economy is the most important thing to the voters right now, is because they want to make sure their job is secure. They want to make sure they're going to get a raise, that their wages will increase, which they are under, again, these policies. We're watching wage increase. So it's keeping this economy going, not going back to the policies that people were afraid of losing their jobs, not seeing any increase in wages, and maybe even seeing the reduction of working hours. The second thing, Andy, besides the economy, is putting an end to illegal immigration. This is not good for the American worker. It's not good for the American family. I've said it a long time, long before anybody else, and still we have people in Washington who support illegal immigration, open borders, and sanctuary cities. The American people don't want that.
And Congressman Barletta, 1 minute left. We want you to look at the camera and tell our viewers and voters why they should vote for you for the U.S. Senate.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, I humbly ask for your support. You know, I have always represented northeastern Pennsylvania. I've always represented the values of northeastern Pennsylvania. You know, as a mayor, many of you saw me fighting for the people in my community. I fought alone without any help, and I wasn't afraid. I didn't go to Washington because I wanted to be in Washington. I went to Washington to make a difference. And I believe those values, those Pennsylvania values, are in direct contrast to Senator Casey's right now. You know, I'm going to go to Washington and I'm going to stand up for you. I'm going to fight for our jobs. I'm going to fight to keep our economy going. I'm going to make sure we take care of our seniors. I'm going to make sure we take care of our veterans. I want to make sure that we give our law enforcement and first responders the respect that they deserve. I want to make sure that we give our military, men and women, the tools that they need. I want to put an end to illegal immigration, and I want to make sure that we are all proud that we stand up for America first.
Well, Congressman Barletta, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll
Thank
be
you.
talking to you, I'm sure, in the weeks and months ahead.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Right.
That will do it for now. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In this segment, we are talking about, of course, the race between incumbent Democratic Senator Bob Casey versus Republican challenger Lou Barletta. Andy Mehalshick, along with Jayne and Bugda, our political analyst, attorney Chris Cullen, Dr. David Sosar from King's College in Wilkes-Barre, and David Yonkai, our political analyst. Let's start with Dave this time around. Dave, what's your take on this Casey versus Barletta?
Well, let me just say right from the start that these are two very decent men who are running for the seat. And also, from a historical standpoint in northeastern Pennsylvania, you have two of northeastern people's finest running against each other. But I'm struck by the Barletta campaign in terms of its advertising. Everybody knows that Donald Trump won the state of Pennsylvania by a close margin. And Barletta, in his advertising, seems to be relying a lot on Donald Trump. He gave a wonderful speech in one of the ads that basically highlighted his enthusiasm and what he might do in the Senate. But at the end, there was an embrace of Donald Trump, and you really have to wonder if that's going to help him. It was almost like a Michael Fredo moment where the two of them were embracing, and, you know, Trump was saying to him, you know, don't disappoint us and don't break their hearts. And the thing of the matter is that, was that going to play in Philadelphia? Is that going to play in the Montgomery County suburbs? And I really think that if you're looking at this particular race, the two of them are running distinctly different advertising campaigns. And I don't think embracing Donald Trump in a state that has more Democrats and in a state that was closely going for Trump in 2016 is going to help pull him through.
I would suggest, however, that I do think that he believes that Trump can help him. Now, and it will be close. I think this race is going to be close regardless of what happens and who wins. But again, I would suggest, and this is from Terry Madonna, who put this out back in the summertime as of yet, Barletta really needs to concern himself with 6 counties. He needs to concern himself with Luzerne County. He needs to concern himself with Northampton County. He needs to concern himself with Berks, Fayette, Beaver, and also Erie. These were the 6 counties that turned most dramatically to Trump when the 2016 election was held. And I think he's counting on Trump to help him out with those and muster enough support, just enough, because many of the center counties are going to be, and the T will be Republican anyway. And I think he's counting on that. I always taken aback by, and again, I'll agree with Dave on the commercials. They're interesting, but I believe that Casey has been using much of what Trump has suggested in his agenda. You will hear about Bob Casey protecting the coal miners and their pensions, about steel, and that we need to be using American steel, and the tariffs, and tariffs are good against the Chinese. All these things that are important that Donald Trump has been saying. So Casey very nicely has kind of very subtly put in into his ads some of what Donald Trump's already been saying.
That's very true, and I think Casey campaign has been run like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. He has an articulate and a very authentic message. It has a good response. It has touched key points of his constituency group. He has addressed those issues. He's done it in a very human way. He has been a statewide candidate, and his father before him, for many elections. He's well known and he's well funded, as I said. Unfortunately for Congressman Barletta, he's a congressman running for a Senate seat. He serves 700,000 people, and there's 11.5 million people in this Commonwealth. He is well known in this area, there's no doubt about it. But the problem is name recognition and money. The issues are favoring Casey right now because of what you just said. And I think something as graphic as Congressman Barletta's advertising, as you mentioned, Dave, is very true. But the authentic quality of Bob Casey is coming out in this election, in the sense that he really at his core has a belief in helping others. And it's been instilled in him through his years of Jesuit education in high school and college, and he participated in the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, something that I have knowledge of because my daughter and my brother served in that too. And it is a remarkable transformation of a person and makes them more concerned and more sensitive to the concerns of others. And I think this is finally coming out in Mr. Casey's advertising, and I also think in his approach on some issues.
Let me point out something about what you said about Bob Casey Jr. Bob Casey Sr. always used to say to people when he was asked about how do you lead, he always would say that, what did you do when you had the power? Exactly. And I think that Bob Casey is thinking that in his mind about what has happened the last couple of years, and I think that has brought him more to a core of letting people know where he's coming from in this race.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we want to thank you for always weighing in, and we want to remind everyone to exercise their right to vote.
Absolutely.
For Chris Cullen, Dr. David Sosa, and Dave Youngkai, and Andy Mehalshick, I'm Jayne Bugda. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk again next time.